Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikari. This morning in the studio with me, Christopher Mureithi, Muthoni Mburu, Nyabulo Kinyo, Hassan Mboto will be joining us shortly. Jamie Gekwa and Advice Mundalo. Lady and gentlemen, many thanks for your time. Let's begin with a look at what happened on Wednesday and the statement by the Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen. And the papers are reporting this morning that in summary of what happened on Wednesday, the anniversary to remember young Kenyans who died last year, some barely out of their childhood, the papers are reporting, with dreams yet to bloom. Now their families are preparing graves instead of graduations. Killed while protesting to honor fallen Gen Z comrades and heroes they have become. The latest victims in a nation that slaughters its future. Before their blood even dries, Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen has doubled down, issuing a chilling shoot-to-kill order, according to the Standard newspaper. Also, the nation reporting tears and the agony, losses to businesses, families in pain and agony, and the government installations that were set ablaze and vandalized across the country. First, beginning with you, Jimmy, what's your account of Wednesday's events, and is the trajectory right for the voices demanding good governance, accountability, and remedying the deep-seated governance problems?
Basically, morning to of yours. Basically, from my point of view, the accountability and what they're asking for, accountability and everything, is very much in order. But how we are going about this system of doing things is also becoming a bit archaic, and it is also becoming a way where we are not in dialogue with anyone. We are fighting each other to make a point. We were coming to commemorate the fallen Gen Zs of last year, as they were propagating for a good finance bill. Mm-hmm. But again, we lost lives. And on top of losing lives, we lost so much business. We also lost so much in terms of a country where we are trying to grapple with hard economic times. So I am of the thought that we would have a better way of doing it, because as long as we use that route over and over again, we just get into losses and losses. So government has to come up with an agenda. Their people, if Gen Zs have a way of bringing the agenda in a different way, because what we saw yesterday, the day before yesterday, we saw people go to very serious heights. Some were even burning police stations. As much as we are agitating for anti-police brutality, but again, you don't fight brutality with brutality. Two wrongs don't make a right. So I think we are in the wrong trajectory in terms of communication, and we are really not doing a good job in terms of how we will be running this country, because we're also teaching the upcoming generation a way of doing things by force, whereas there is a rule of law, and people also need to understand that there has to be power that is above for us to be able to work even and live in a cohesive community. Okay, and
Nyabul, coming to you, what's your assessment of Wednesday's protest, which were meant to remember events of last year?
Good morning, Ayub and viewers. Thanks for having me. I'm Nyabulo Kinyo. Have a background in financial professional. I focus on day-to-day activities in banking and helping the youths in regards to saving and early investment. My day-to-day activities involve in my workspace, involve in ensuring the youth they can be able to invest early and make long-term decisions. On Wednesday, 25th June, I made a bold decision to attend the protests so that I can stand up for those people who couldn't come to the street, for those who are dead, and most importantly, to commemorate our own fallen soldiers. We partially part of the morning, it was quite successful, but as we continued the protest, I witnessed individuals who all said hired guns hitting a woman, a police officer. In my context, I decided to try to save the woman. The woman was hit, and the hired guns were baying for blood. They were consistent. Up to a certain point, I had to go their way. There is no monopoly of violence, so I had to push some so that I can protect the police lady. Successfully, an ambulance arrived, and I, together with the doctors, we gave her first aid. Now, few police officers observed that, and they thought in return they should maybe ask me and my brother to stay with them so that they can protect us.
Okay.
Well, I must say I must have been a fool to believe them, because no sooner had the ambulance left, the police officer turned on me and my brother. They thoroughly whipped us, they banged us, they put our, I think my phone and my brother's phone, they were lost in the process, and they were very consistent in that. But I also want to point out, among the police officers who were hitting me, there was one lone police officer who was trying to ask them not to hit and to observe restraint. So what I observed is, basically, we have goons. We have two kinds of goons. The state-sponsored goons, who are the rogue police officers, and we have hired goons who are sponsored by certain sections of members of parliament. I have an intel that the state-sponsored goon, they are hired by high-level individuals in the security. I also have an intel, the civilian hired goons, they are sponsored by individuals who are part to be our leaders in the members of the parliament.
Okay, we'll talk more about that. Advice coming to you. What was meant to be a very significant day was largely characterized by violence, is it? And both on the part of the security agencies and also on the part of Kenyans, and lives were lost.
Thank you very much, Ayub. And first of all, good morning to you and good morning to my colleagues and the rest of the viewers. First of all, let me say that what happened on Wednesday, what I saw was a rise of a generation once again. A generation rose up to actually speak its mind. A generation was able to come up to just be in solidarity with their colleagues who we actually lost in the last year's finance bill protest. And that was a very noble agenda in regard to just remembering those ones who had actually lost. So I saw that coming up very vehemently, and the young people actually came out in large numbers just to be able to stand with their own. But the other thing that also came out very vehemently is that there is a lot of misuse of the agenda of young people. And the misuse of the agenda of young people is being done by two people, some of the people in the civil society and some of the people in the political space for political expediency. That we are having people who are now wanting to hijack a clear-cut agenda of young people to pursue personal interests. And that's why we're able to see a lot of mayhem happening yesterday. We are now speaking on about 48 hours later. And 48 hours later, we have 16 lives that have been lost. 48 hours later, we have businesses that will never come back to life. One of the issues that young people are actually agitating and speaking about is the issue of unemployment. But 48 hours later, more young people are going to lose their jobs because the businesses that sustained them, because those people who had actually come up with those businesses can no longer hire them. 48 hours later, we are having now police officers who have been severely injured. We have had some police officers who are beaten. I saw clips of police officers being beaten. And what we keep forgetting is that when police officers are released to the streets, almost 100% of those police officers are also young people. So when we are losing lives of the protesters and we are getting the officers in trouble and some of them going to lose their jobs, we are beaten on both sides, because we have a young person who we lose as a protester, we have young people who are injured, and we have young people who are in the police force that also get to lose their jobs, and they start these whole court battles. So it is a day that ended up in the most unfortunate bid ever. I don't think the organizers and the young people, when they were planning to just go and commemorate their own, together with the families of those who lost their lives, I do not really think that is what they envisioned Wednesday to be. But unfortunately, because people in the political space will take credit, to want to exercise some political expediency, to want to be able to milk every political capital possible out of that protest, and that is the reason why it went as bad as it went.
Okay. Christopher, you were on the streets that day, and we are talking 48 hours later about a double tragedy case where we have lost lives, businesses looted, vandalized, and Kenyans waking up to losses running into millions of shillings.
Yeah, sad. But allow me first to say good morning to Kenyans. And I would rather start on a positive note. First, to congratulate Faith Kipyegon for her brave attempt at breaking the 4-minute barrier in the mile. And while Faith was practicing to break a record, the government was also practicing to break the record of how many people it can kill in a day. And I was on the streets. I showed up in the morning. The previous day, the government assured Kenyans that there will be peaceful and there will be enough security for those who will protest. But at 8 a.m., there was a cloud of tear gas in the entire CBD. That was an indicator that they did not intend for there to be any protest. If there was anyone who is protesting, it's actually the government that is protesting against its own people. We showed up, and at around Globe Cinema roundabout, I found people who were actually vandalizing businesses. And personally, I approached some policemen and I told them, hey, instead of tear gassing peaceful protesters, why don't you go down there and do your job of protecting businesses and lives? But they say that's none of our business today. You are the guys who are causing the mayhem. That is the stand of the police who are meant to protect the lives and property of people. So I want to advise the people running this government. Please just call Faith Kipyegon and get some tips of running, because we will run you out of office legally and through constitutional means. We may not do it by protest just yet because you have decided you will kill all of us, but come 2027, through the ballot, we will run them out of office. And Ayub, please allow me to pick a statement by Agatha, the Ugandan activist recently. Yes, she said that the primary responsibility of the media is to afflict the comfortable. And this government is too comfortable wallowing in the miasma of autocratic impunity that the CS comes later and gives an order to shoot and kill the people. I think you saw the clip yesterday. And just a few days ago, he was on the floor of the Senate, and he really gave a beating to Senator Cherargei and accusing him that, you know, he was his student and he was a poor performing student. But now understand, Senator Cherargei was not the problem. The problem was the lecturer, and you see an average lecturer cannot produce an excellent student. So the government, the buck stops with the government. Okay. And the CS, as he was speaking, I think these people should be slow in their words, and I think my brother's advice would be very well suited to do a job for government in terms of speaking and being a spokesman to the government. But what was meant to be a peaceful protest ended up being chaotic because hired goons who are, and we have seen them in time past, they are under the patronage of the police. And even at the first instance, I was also in the demonstration, and I stood at the Jubilee House next to City Hall. And you will see after the goons go around, they will come back, and there was a gentleman in a suit inside City Hall who they were constantly communicating. I was there. I recorded it. If somebody wants the clip, I can share it. These are state-sponsored goons, and then we will blame the youth so that next time they'll be afraid to come out. And at the end of that statement is when the CS mentioned those who lost their lives. Okay. How unempathetic can this government be? Okay. And Advocate Muthoni, good morning.
Good morning.
In the midst of all this, how does the goal remain and the vision remain and the target remain in the midst of this foggy environment of killings, vandalism, looting, and the call toward good governance and accountability?
Thank you very much for this noble opportunity to be here today. I am indeed grateful. Let me first begin by passing my heartfelt, sincere condolences to the families, the loved ones, the persons that have lost their loved ones, the young people of this nation. It is indeed a sad day as a Kenyan to wake up to more lives being lost. lives that ought to have been protected by these very police officers, by this very government. The government should indeed care for its children. And it is indeed a sad day for Kenyans to wake up to this sad news. And to that, it brings the conversation really into looking at the issue of the right to owning of property under Article 40 and the issue to right to life, and how these rights exist hand in hand. Which right is it? Is there any right that is above the other right? Does the right to own property extinguish the right to life? And also brings the conversation into the rights of an arrested person, and it is provided by the Constitution. What happens? Does, when the Public Order Act gives a stipulated time within which perhaps the mandamano should cease, does the right to life, does the right to certain rights that a person, an individual have extinguished just because this time has lapsed? What should happen if a person indeed is caught, a goon or not? If a person indeed is caught destroying property, do their rights extinguish there, and are they supposed to be dealt with? And when we talk about the right to property, it also brings the conversation about the use of excessive force and what force should be warranted in a particular action. When you shoot someone in the head or in the chest, is that really to maim someone, or is it indeed to take away someone's life? Should these police officers be taken back to their training centers and be informed about what they should do in particular situation? This is not an exceptional case for Kenya to have protests. Protests are experienced all over the world, and it would interest perhaps the Kenyan the security agencies and indeed government and these cabinet secretaries to watch what happens in those advanced countries. What happens in the United States? They have body cameras so that even when there's an aggression, they can account for each action for everything. But would we have body cameras and police officers in Kenya? I bet not. And why would that be the case? They would not want to account for anything. If they could bar the media, which has been given its constitutional mandate to indeed showcase what is happening, I don't think they would want to even have the police officers have those body cameras. Because these things that we experienced on June 25th this year, it is the aftermath was seen the next day when the medias were allowed to indeed go and show what has happened when in between this span when the media was banned by the Communications Authority.
Yeah. And even in the advanced democracy that you have talked about, is it more about the body cams? Because it's in the midst of that, George Floyd was killed by a police officer who had put his knee on his neck, which prevented him from breathing for some 8 minutes. Or we look at the institutional architecture and the welfare of our police. Ideally, then what works for us? What's our homegrown solution? Because the Americans have their own fair share of problems.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, because it means integrity at the end of the day. Integrity, 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 integrity. I cannot overemphasize. Integrity of institutions, independence of institutions. Let's say, for example, if it's the first arm of the government not wanting to interfere, even with the fourth estate, perhaps. Yeah. So if there's no integrity, I mean, even these reforms that we can recommend will fall to deaf ears and will definitely not have any result.
Okay, we'll talk about the media and the directive by the Communications Authority and what the court said. Hassan Boto, good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely having you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What's your autopsy of what happened, or report card of what happened on Wednesday?
Ayub, let me take you back in history a little bit. Just in 1963, when people marched in America, they had a plan and there was a specific demand that they wanted. It was very powerful. Fast forward, in June 2024, the Gen Z had this fire, and it was a plan, and it was a very powerful, one of the most powerful I have ever seen. And it had this fire that really, really ignited the passion of being a democratic Kenyan youth. Now, Wednesday, for me, it was just very chaotic. Wednesday, there was no plan, there was no demand, there were so missing components of it. There was no compelling message, there was no visual and symbolism. For me, Wednesday was very chaotic, because as Kenyan youth, when we saying we are planning or we want to go and demand something, we need a compelling message. For me, Wednesday was very chaotic. It was police brutality, Ruto must go. It was one term, it was a lot of noise that if we don't have a compelling narrative that actually specifically speaks to what the marching and the demand is for, then we've lost it. We've lost the fire that was ignited in 2024.
Okay. Chris, was that the case? Briefly, yes or no?
I don't agree.
You had a cause?
Yeah, we had
No,
a
me, I
cause.
agree with her 100%.
It is really
Hey,
sad.
come on.
Mine, me, I agree with her 100%.
It's sad.
Ayub, excuse me.
It was
There's only-
chaotic.
There's only one
I'll
Christopher,
come to
my
you.
friend. He
Allow
referenced
Chris to answer.
he referenced it to Christopher, and I hold
Yes.
for
We have an entire 1 hour plan.
Yeah, relax.
Hold your horses.
Yeah, so
Those lives before
everyone will be
The
given
goal
adequate
yesterday was to commemorate our heroes who were killed in
And
the line
kill
of
more.
duty. That was the goal for Wednesday's
So sad.
protest. So yes, we.
Other than that,
Zero. There's nothing.
Other than that,
Nobody can just say.
number one, Ayub,
just hang on,
come on,
because last year, Christopher, the goal was 1.
stop heckling.
And ideally, there were 2 issues that gelled into each other.
Yes.
It was Parliament debating the final stage of the finance bill.
Yes.
They passed it.
Yes.
And the young Kenyans were on the streets. The call was, drop the bill. It contains punitive tax proposals.
Yes.
And which Parliament was dead against, scampered for safety, and they used the tunnel, which is underneath what connects that to Bunge Tower.
Yes.
What was the agenda this time around? You are saying
The agenda this time was, number one, to remember those who were killed during that protest. Number two, to demand for accountability from the government, because the government said they would compensate the victims of police brutality from last year, the protest last year. Yet, 1 year later, they have done nothing about it. Okay? Yesterday, the CS again said they will compensate the businesses that were looted. We will wait another 1 year, and then we'll go back on the streets to demand for accountability. We are not demanding for something that is not existing. The president also said, once again, I was here a few weeks ago, and he said that he would reduce the number of advisors in State House, the presidential advisors. There were about 7. Now they're in almost 30. Okay? He said that he would... There are so many things he promised.
Yeah, I have a long list
And
of
so
what
when
he
we
promised.
come back, as we commemorate, indeed, it's a long list.
Yes, just hang on. We'll talk about the promises, because the advice, that's also an equally important point that we have to remind ourselves of the pledges that are made by the political class. Ideally, then have the debate on how we can then move our country forward. So once we get back from the break, ladies and gentlemen, that will be our focus, plus, of course, the state of human rights in the country, democracy, media freedom, and also where the responsibility falls, because it is Rigathi Gachagua who yesterday condemned what happened on Wednesday, but equally supported the very same violence in 2023 when the opposition went on the streets to demand for a reduction in the cost of living. Who then has the high moral ground in Kenya's political arena? All that after the break here on the broadcast stage.